Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
Great Scott! Back to the Future time. I don't know if that was good. Was that good?
It was good.
It was okay.
It wasn't bad.
You've just got to commit, haven't you? You just got to go for it.
You have to.
Just got to go for it.
This has been a really fun week for me. I've really enjoyed this. Well, there was a little bit of a wobble.
Oh.
And we'll discuss that when we get into it.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I have 100% really enjoyed this.
Mm-hmm. So it's the 35th anniversary of Back to the Future this week, is that correct?
It is, yeah,
so
that's right.
1985 that came out. And we're going to cover the trilogy today, I believe. Well, I hope so, to plan for it. And that's going to include a massive quiz. We're going to cover all 3 films. And then we're going to talk about Back to the Future, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, the plot, characters and performances, special effects, and pop culture legacy.
Just part of daily life, isn't it? Everybody knows Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know at least something about it, or some of the dialogue. It's just become part of
it's rippled through culture, hasn't it? Yeah, it's reverberated in all sorts of areas, and they were very clever actually with how they did that and integrated themselves. But yeah, lots to talk about. I should say we're actually recording this episode in the year 2045, so it should be superior audio quality. Yeah, we're going to start it all off with a quiz.
We are.
And we've not done a quiz for a while, so I'm very pleased to cue the quiz music. There are 30 questions. We're covering 10 questions per film, which is 5 questions per film each. It's not complicated at all, Mary. It's like Back to the Future Part 2. It's perfectly straightforward.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
Over to you.
Okay, are you ready then for your first question?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, your first question is, name Marty's siblings.
Oh my god. I think the guy's called Evan or something. He's got an E name. And his sister's called... I don't know. I'm going to make it up. Julie.
Evan and Julie.
Is that not right?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay, that is not correct, I'm afraid. Marty's siblings are called Dave and Linda.
Oh, to be honest, they're not in it very much, so I don't feel too bad for not remembering that. Okay. Your first question. What is the name of Marty McFly's band?
Oh, Christ.
Briefly mentioned once.
Oh, Christ.
I've made things very hard, by the way. I didn't mean to.
That is extremely hard. We are the...
Yeah.
No, not a clue.
I'm afraid they are called the Pinheads.
Oh, God. Oh, well, I would never have got that.
I'm sorry.
Not a chance.
Sorry. We're doing okay.
Right. Number 2. Who does the musician call on the phone while Marty plays?
Okay, you must be some kind of music producer. It's not Simon Cowell. It's like
Simon Cowell.
If it's like some kind of like Motown Records person, or I can't recall. Pass.
It's Chuck Berry.
Oh, okay.
The musician.
It's going well. All of Doc Brown's clocks are synchronized, but specifically, why was he so impressed about it?
Oh, Jesus. That's just ridiculous. Do you know what? People are going to think that we don't know anything about Back to the Future, but I actually really do.
Well...
No. Go on,
no.
You're going to have to tell me.
Yeah, they were all synchronised to the same time, but he was really excited because he'd managed to get them all 25 minutes slow. For no apparent reason, which is how Marty was late for school.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say something about him being late for school, but I wouldn't have got because of that.
No.
Right. What does Marty play to George to make him ask Lorraine to the dance? And who does he say he is?
Oh, they watch a film. Oh, I'm getting this mixed up with the Green
Mile.
Mile.
This mixed up. Yes,
it's not a film.
Mixed up.
Oh God, yeah, it's like we never watch these films. Play to him. I think he's got a guitar, but I don't know why he would sing to him.
He doesn't sing to him.
I'm gonna have to pass. I actually don't know.
Such a shame. He plays the cassette Van Halen while he's sleeping and tells him he's Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan.
Oh, that bit.
Yeah, that
no,
bit.
I wouldn't have. No, no,
Okay, go on then, hit me.
I can't. You're too far away. According to the campaign slogans of both Goldie Wilson in 1985 and Red Thomas in 1955, what is their middle name?
Oh, Jesus. These are really hard.
I'm sorry. To be fair, yours are quite hard too.
Yeah.
We've not got anything right. Play along at home. Put your answers in the comments.
Jesus.
So, as the vans drive around the city, they are saying, vote for such a thing. Something is his middle name.
Progress? Is it Progress?
Progress is his middle name.
God.
We've got an answer
Thank
right.
God. Yay!
Okay, hopefully
one
it'll
of
pick
us.
up
How
from
many
here.
questions is that? Was that
was
six questions?
six
It took for
questions
one
in.
of us to get a question right.
Yeah. That's bad, isn't it?
That's not good. And this
Not
is
good.
the first one. We should know that one the best.
Yeah.
Okay. You're number 4 then.
Yeah.
What date does Marty go back to 1955?
Right. It's in the month of November? No, September.
Right.
It's in November.
No, that's right.
Okay. My instinct is to say the 12th.
That's incorrect, I'm afraid. It's November 5th,
Oh,
1955.
is he there till the 12th? Or something like that?
I'm not sure,
Days the
to
week
be honest.
or something, doesn't he? Okay. What nationality were the terrorists that Doc stole the plutonium from?
The Libyans!
It's the Libyans, yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're doing better than me then. Okay.
Okay. Last one for this section.
Mm-hmm.
What time does the lightning bolt hit the clock tower?
Right, I think I know this one. Do I? Yeah. I think it's like 12 past 8 in the evening.
12 past 8.
Yeah, because it's not quite 12 minutes past 8. Yeah, I'm going with my instinct.
Okay. Unfortunately, your instinct is a little off.
Is it 1 minute out?
No, it's 10:04 p.m.
Or is it past 10 o'clock?
It is, yeah. 4
Never
minutes
mind.
past 10.
Last question for Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
How does Dot describe a video camera in 1955?
Oh, do you know? These are hard.
Yeah.
It's a little something. Is it something device? Something?
Not what I've got written down. You're not a million miles off, I suppose.
No.
No. The answer is a portable television studio.
No, would never have got that.
No. You did well there, though. You got 2. I got nothing. Moving on to Back to the Future Part 2.
Okay. What is the name of the magazine Biff puts the almanac dust cover on?
I know this one. It's called Ooh La La.
That's correct.
Yay!
Well done.
I got one right. Okay. When Marty walks out into the town for the first time in 2015, in the future, what words are painted on the road?
Oh, God.
It's massive big white letters, and he walks right over it.
Jesus. I wasn't looking at the floor, I was looking at the buildings.
You might be able to sort of work it out.
Let's fly, right. No landing.
Yes.
Yes!
Correct. Where did that come from?
I don't know, I was trying to like reconfigure the scene in my head. And then I just thought, well,
Instead
they're flying, aren't they?
parking,
The cars are flying. Yeah, the cars are flying, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Jaws is playing in 2015?
I think it's 19.
That's
Jaws
correct.
19. Yeah.
Yes,
I seem to know the second one better, don't I?
It's more recent in your memory.
That makes sense. Okay, what is the name of the arcade game that Marty plays in the diner?
Oh. Do you know what? I even wrote a note about it to mention, but I don't think I bothered to even put what the game was. Oh. Something to do with a Western. It's a Western thing. No, I don't know.
No, it's called Wild Gunman.
Oh, really easy, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, sort of, but not. I don't know.
Okay, all right then. Doc and Marty travel to what date in the future?
Oh, not good at this. I think it's probably a trick question, and they go to the 5th of November again, 2015.
That is incorrect, I'm afraid.
I tried to be clever.
They have to go to a specific date, and it's the 21st of October, 2015.
Wouldn't have known. Okay, what is George McFly's middle name according to his tombstone?
Oh, Jesus. Begins with a D. Is it Douglas?
Yeah.
Hey!
Where are you getting these answers from? Mad.
I don't know. I quite like Back to the Future. Your next question is, what was the name of Biff Tannen's grandson?
His name was Griff.
That's correct. Well done. Griff's all I need. That's fine.
Okay. How much was it going to cost Biff to repair his car following the manure incident?
$300.
Correct. Yes.
Where did Doc say he'd been when he and Marty arrive in 2015?
So just as they land in the alleyway, is it there?
Yeah. He's getting out of the car and he tells him where he's just been.
He's just been to a place.
It's a place.
I'll say he's gone to, I don't know, the Bermuda Triangle.
No. He rips off his face and he tells him he's been to a rejuvenation clinic.
Oh, I see. Yeah, rings a bell now.
Okay.
Last one for you.
Mm-hmm.
What film does Biff watch in his jacuzzi?
Is it Fistful of Dollars?
That's correct. Well done.
Okay, so
last film then.
the last film. This is the most recent one you've watched, so hopefully we'll both do okay.
Yeah.
I only watched this last night, so I'm hoping I'll do all right.
Oh, right, okay.
What has Doc built in his barn when Marty gets to 1885?
Marty calls it a fridge, but it's an ice machine.
Yeah, a refrigerator. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Cool.
Okay.
What is the name of the children's TV show that wakes Doc up at the beginning of the
Howdy
film?
Doody.
Correct.
Okay, what happens to the whiskey when it's poured in the bar?
I seem to remember it sort of smokes a bit, I think. It sort of...
That's
steam's
correct.
coming out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
correct.
Woohoo! Okay, Doc Brown's dog in 1985 is called Einstein, but what is the name of his dog in 1955?
Copernicus.
Yes, that's right.
Something like that.
It is. That is correct.
What date is Doc supposed to die
Oh, for God's
in
sake.
the past?
Oh, I'm not good with dates.
I'm going to bear this in mind for future.
Oh, I can maybe work it out though, because I know when he sent... do I? He sent the letter sometime in September.
Correct.
Because he'd been there for 8 months, and then he died like a few days later. So if I can work out... I don't know what date was on the letter though, so I'm just going to guess 26th of September 1885.
Unfortunately, that's incorrect. It's the 7th of September, and that is a Monday.
Yes, good to know. Okay, what caused Clara to lose control of her carriage?
Oh, I don't remember that.
Mm.
Was I not paying attention properly at this particular moment?
Well, it sounds like it.
No, I don't know.
No. She says the horses were spooked by a snake.
Yeah, no, not a memory of that bit. No.
She definitely says it, I promise. Just making it up now.
Where did the bartender tell Marty to go if he wanted ice water?
Yeah, because he says it and they all laugh. Alaska? I don't know.
No, the horse trough.
Oh, nah, wouldn't have got it. Nope. Okay, what number is the train that passes through Hill Valley?
Oh, Jesus.
It's written on the front and the sides.
For some reason, I've got 361 in my head. I'm just going to go with that.
Well done. No, it's wrong. It's 1, 3.
I was going to be really, really impressed then.
No, it's 131. 131.
Okay. And your last question is, what are the 3 names of the ravine?
Right, okay, I think I can maybe... Oh, I don't know what it was to begin with. I'm going to do it in reverse order. It ends
That's
as
fine.
Eastwood Ravine.
Correct.
Before that, it's her name, and I think it's probably Clara... Right, Clayton Ravine.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And before that, that's where it's not. It's based on someone that we don't know. I can't even make up a name. I don't know.
I'll give you half a point for that one.
Thanks.
It's Shonash.
Would never have in a million years made that up. No. I'll take half a point if there's one going.
Yeah, you can have half a point there.
Last question for you. According to Sheriff Strickland, how many days in the county jail would you get for brawling?
Oh, Jesus. 15?
Yeah. 15 days for brawling. I don't know how you got all these out of nowhere.
I'm extremely impressed. I picked that out of my frigging backside, that one.
Nice to know.
So out of 15, you managed to get 5.5.
Oh, I got half, didn't I? Yeah.
You
I didn't
did.
write the half down. 5.5 out of 15.
5.5.
It's over a third.
It is.
And you got 9 out of 15, which is a percentage I can't work out very quickly.
I'll take that. I'm fine with that.
That's good. Just under 2/3.
They were very hard questions.
They were, I think, all round they were pretty hard.
So we're starting with Back to the Future, obviously, the original. This is the film, isn't it? And you could probably watch this as a standalone. You don't have to watch the sequels.
Yeah.
Which I think probably a lot of people do. Just watch the first one.
It's not the one I remember the most, if I'm being honest.
Really?
And a lot of it I didn't remember, but again, I only watched it once, and quite a long time ago now.
I think this is miles better than the sequels.
Right.
I really think that everything for this film came into place perfectly. It's like lightning in a bottle, this one, and I don't think the sequels match up to this whatsoever.
The story of this one's pretty straightforward, and actually not a lot really happens, but what it is it's the other films that then embellish and add on.
It's a very simplistic story, but it's told extremely well. The gist of it is that
you do the plot, because I don't know it.
Yes.
Clearly.
That Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, is friends with a kind of a friendly mad scientist, so to speak, who builds a time machine out of a DeLorean, as you do. And inadvertently, through certain circumstances, Marty ends up back in 1955 and changes history to the point that he and his siblings will no longer exist if he can't get his parents back together, basically, or to meet through their original timeline.
Yeah.
And then has to try and get back to the future to 1985, which is his present day.
Yeah.
So a very, very simple plot, but it's just fantastic. I think the script for this film is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well, I think people really like time travel stories anyway, but then to make it a comedy and to make it what they did make, there's something quite exciting about it. I mean, just a basic level, the idea of going back and having to put events back in order, avoiding the paradoxes and avoiding erasing yourself from the future and little things like that.
It must have been extremely hard to write, but when it's actually played out, it works really well. And
actually, when you're rewatching it, it's quite exciting as well, knowing that the plot of the film has already happened at the beginning of the film. So all the little nods to things like the clock tower, especially, you have that knowledge already, how important he was to the events of his own world that he's unaware of at this point. I like that.
Yeah. I think this film, it's got one of the greatest introductions to a character in film, in my opinion. The way you're introduced to Marty and not only that, but even Doc, even though he's not actually there, the opening kind of just pans over all of his inventions and the breakfast starting and the dog food and and all of that and all the clocks and then Marty coming in. And I have to say, the shot of the plectrum, the shine on the plectrum before that is one of my favourite shots in the entire film. I don't know why, but I absolutely love it. And then the introduction of him taking those sunglasses off in like awe. That it's such a fantastic introduction to a character. Yeah. It's really great.
Yeah, in that sense, everything from, like you say, the sunglasses, the plectrum, the guitar, the skateboard for
the
Marty.
Clothing.
Yeah, the body warmer thing.
Yeah.
And that they've kind of just put in a visual package everything that you kind of need to know about him. And like you say, it's perfect exposition of a character. And the same with Doc, even though he's not on the screen, like you say, mad inventions that are going wrong, but you feel like they're wrong because he's made them that way.
Yeah.
Like with we said in the quiz, the clocks are deliberately backwards. It's not a mistake. He's done that because he wanted to. So I completely agree. They're very good.
And also, not long after that, you're then introduced to the soundtrack. You've got that amazing 80s, The Power of Love.
Yeah. Huey Lewis and the News.
Huey Lewis, yeah. Absolutely fantastic. And you are in the 80s.
Yeah.
You see the town square, basically, the courthouse square.
It's the set for the whole 3 films, really, isn't it?
It's fantastic. And it's such a famous set, actually. The town was created on the Universal Studios backlot years ago. It's named Courthouse Square.
Yeah.
And you'll recognise it in Gremlins, which was made a couple of years before. It's the town square in To Kill a Mockingbird from the 1960s.
Oh, wow.
It's been in tons of TV shows. It's a really well-known set, but I think what's really interesting is it's small enough that there's only so many things that you have to look at.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is, obviously, we're watching it in present day, so we're watching all of the 80s things that are there, all of the things that you're looking at that were normal in the 80s. But then you go back again and you're seeing this town square dressed up for the 50s, and that's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It really works.
The film itself is a time capsule of itself, as well as representing other eras too. And like you say, what happens then as a result? There's only a certain number of buildings, like you've got the cinema and the garage and the clock itself, the parallels between the past and the present, and the subtle differences between. But it is very clever.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, very early on, you're introduced to the DeLorean. It doesn't take long. I can't think of a time something has become so synonymous with a film as the DeLorean is with Back to the Future.
Yeah.
It's hand in hand. One comes with the other.
It's quite random, isn't it? Actually?
Amazing, really.
When you think about it.
Yeah. Well, they just picked this car. What car can we pick? I mean, I think originally it was supposed to be a fridge.
Oh, right.
Which is unbelievable. And somebody decided to go with the car, and the DeLorean is the Back to the Future car. It is the time machine.
That's true.
Simple as that. You know, I think that is fantastic. And I think they made an excellent choice as well, because it is such a cool car.
Yeah. I think the word that's going to keep coming up in this episode is iconic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's exactly what you're describing, I think. And like you say, although it seems like it might have been a random choice at the time, it's almost a genius choice because it's random. And that's why everyone loves it, because it is just ordinary, I guess.
I think one of the things I noticed watching this is how much I love the script. The dialogue is so clever. Now, just like they've done with the visuals, there's so many lines in there that are clever asides, that it's just so well put together. You can watch the film and just be like, oh, yeah. And you notice new things all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine you pick up something new every time.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Comedy genius, some of it.
I do like the ones that sort of, again, the foregrounding the plot. Even very early on, he's saying history's going to change.
Yeah, just out of one example, for instance, is the Lone Pines Mall.
Yes.
When he goes back, he knocks the pine tree over. And I mean, it's so clever. There's so many little bits like that.
Yeah.
And I just think that's incredibly done.
That's again with the time travel element. He can either make things right, mess things up, or inadvertently invent things. Like, there's 3 ways everything he does can go.
Yeah.
There's never an option of no effect. And when he invented skateboards and rock and roll, and it's pretty fun to watch.
In terms of casting for this, I mean, the story's well known that Michael J. Fox was offered this at the start but couldn't do the film due to scheduling conflicts. So they actually got somebody else in to do it, completely different, and actually filmed with them. I can't remember his name. I'll have to see if I can find it. Let's have a look. Eric Stoltz.
Oh, I know that. I recognise the name. I just don't know how. I don't know why I know him.
So he was cast instead of, but it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
So they went back to Michael J. Fox, and he literally did his TV show, which he was doing, and Back to the Future at the same time. So he was doing night shoots on Back to the Future, and then being driven back while he slept.
Yeah.
To wherever he was shooting the other one, shooting that, and then sleeping and being driven back to the Back to the Future. I mean, it must have been absolutely excruciating to do both at the same time. Getting him eventually.
Yeah.
It was fate.
Something that I thought was really funny is that a lot of the plot synopses, if you look around on different websites, say 80s teenager Marty McFly, and it just sort of sums it up straight away that he is sort of the epitome of 80s teenager.
Even though he was 24 when he filmed the film.
Well, what I thought is, if we've got like Tom Holland now, and in the noughties we had Zac Efron, and in the 90s we had Frankie Muniz and people like that. In the 80s it was Michael J. Fox.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They all sort of ooze this coolness and dorkiness at the same time, and there's something about that.
And Christopher Lloyd as well. Christopher Lloyd is incredible in this. He's just the right amount of mad genius.
Yeah, it's not too over the top.
Yeah, he's the perfect amount of over the top. His eyes are like really mad, and he's hilarious. Yeah, absolutely hilarious. He plays it perfectly on the line.
What I like about him is that he's never too nutty to not have common sense, if that makes sense. Because sometimes it's like, he doesn't make mistakes as such. Things go wrong, but he's always got a solution.
But he knows he knows what he wants to do. It just doesn't always work out that way.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Again, genius casting. And when you put them two together as well, it just works so well.
And visually as well. Obviously, we talked about Marty's clothing, but the fact that Doc has this, it's the white lab coat and the white hair and the crazy ties and all the little details on his person, I guess, is the two of them together. It's just an iconic image, and you can't make it up. I do want to talk about Jennifer.
Yes, go ahead. Jennifer's a funny one.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's unusual anyway to have the lead character already have a girlfriend.
Yes, that's true.
From the very beginning of the film, which makes it very different from a lot of the films because it's not necessarily a get the girl romance plot.
No, well, I was watching last night little making of the third one, and what they were saying that Michael J. Fox is never the pivotal character in the film. He is kind of like the master of ceremonies. He's just there and he's witnessing, he's doing it. In the first film, it was Crispin Glover playing his dad, George McFly. He was the pivotal character. And then obviously the second one is a mix of a few, and the third one is Doc Brown. He's the pivotal character in the third one. So he's just kind of there to experience things. It's not his story, so to speak, really.
Well, technically he's there by accident. Anyway, isn't he? He's not there by his own choice.
Yeah, it's not his story arc you're kind of interested in. It's the others that you've got to fix, and they're the important ones, really.
Yeah. So this Jennifer, she's quite often just left.
Yeah,
in a lot of the films.
She is.
It's quite funny. Sorry, I just had to bring that up because I thought she was pretty useless in the whole thing. I don't know why she had to be there.
Well, she was recast after the first one. She couldn't film the next one, so they recast with Elizabeth Shue, who was another up and coming 80s actress. She kind of was really put on the map after that.
Yeah,
I don't know what the kind of the deal was with that, whether she was always going to be sidelined or they sidelined
a little bit more
because
once they
of
knew,
what happened. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but she really is just kind of left.
in most films.
But even so, that's because the plot's so full, and it's the plot is so well put together. It is one of the most perfect stories I think that's scripted.
Yeah.
There's so many great set pieces in it. The initial going back in time, with the Libyans and all that, and then obviously coming back. That's the whole scene of that. Trying to get back in the clock tower and all that. The skateboard sequence with Biff chasing in the main scene. Yeah, and then you've got the Johnny B. Good dancing dance sequence. It's full of sequences.
Yeah, it's a very 80s thing to do.
Yeah, but it's very full, the plot. Even though it's a very simple story, there are a lot of set pieces in there that drive you forward to different things. I do love them. I think the Johnny B. Good sequence is probably my favourite.
Yeah.
I really do love that. I think it's fantastic. We've got to mention, we have to mention the score.
Oh, yeah.
Alan Silvestri. Oh, it's just immense.
And
again,
good.
It's a little bit like the car. Everybody knows it's Back to the Future. You know, it's become one of those themes that's just known.
Yeah, it transports you straight to the film when you hear it.
Exactly. It oozes action and energy, and it perfectly fits the film.
Yeah.
It adds so much to the scene. It makes the scenes work.
And you don't mind hearing it repeat or come back because it always suits whatever it's going
exactly.
with.
It's driving the scene.
Yeah.
And I love that. I really do love that.
Speaking of things that are repeating, we probably shouldn't ignore it. I don't think any other film would have gotten away with it the way this one did, but the cast, they're multi-rolling in that they play past and present versions of themselves. And I say that Back to the Future is the only film that could really get away with it. I don't even know whether it really achieved it that well.
I think it works in the first film.
Just about.
I think it works in the first one.
I think George McFly was brilliant. I thought Crispin Glover was possibly one of my favourite characters.
I like Leah Thompson as Lorraine, the mum.
Young Lorraine, yes, but not the older one.
I think what hinders it is the makeup.
Yeah.
And I think it was supposed to look that way.
Yeah, sort of deliberately a bit bad.
Yeah, I think personally it was the style they were going for because they follow that through with the rest.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
So I think it was done deliberately. But it doesn't quite help.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe people who had grown up with the film from a much younger age than I had maybe wouldn't care so much about it because you just take it, don't you? It's part of the film.
Yeah, you do. Well, yeah.
But I've got to say, some of them were a bit distracting. Like the older version of Lorraine, she just looked hideous. She didn't quite look like a real person.
Her life hadn't turned out very well, and I think that was a deliberate choice to make the makeup like that, to show that, you know, especially at the beginning before the timeline changes, that, you know, she's a drinker and she's kind of put out by what her life became.
It's a good point, to be honest. Yeah, I think if I were to watch it again, I probably would pick up on more of that because she was like drinking in the car and stuff, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And he tells her to stop. The other one is Biff, played by Thomas F. Wilson.
Oh, he is fantastic. He hams it up, but just the right amount of hamminess.
But yeah, I think the makeup was one of the things that stopped me from not giving it more than 4 stars on Letterboxd.
I think that's, again, like you just said, though, if you'd have watched it from a younger age, if it was something that you'd were just familiar with, it probably wouldn't have been as jarring to you.
You can forgive certain things, can't you?
Like for me, it just doesn't bother me whatsoever. I don't think anything of it.
Yeah.
So going on from that, then the special effects in the first
absolutely.
one. I think they're the most successful of the effects that are used.
It's more impressive because it was earlier. That's fair to say, I think. And I think there was more of the effects in this film compared to the other ones.
You either accept special effects or you don't.
Yeah.
Basically, and there's only one bit really that's a little bit of a wobble for me, and that's the hand. Yeah.
This is the bit where he's realising that he's being erased, isn't it? He's seeing himself vanish from chronology.
Yes.
Yeah.
But other than that, it all works for me, the rest.
It was impressive that they tried it.
Yeah, it was.
The other big thing is just the DeLorean, isn't it? The electricity and the fiery effect. That's iconic too.
But it works. It just works. There's no question in it.
It fits the era.
For me, it just works perfectly.
In a way, like the Back to the Future parodies 80s films whilst 80s films were still happening. I don't know how else to say that. They knowingly were winking at themselves.
Yeah, its own legacy helps in that respect, though, because we bring that to it now.
Yeah, that's true.
So it becomes all the more parodied.
Absolutely. You talk about legacy there, and that fire effect. You see it on the posters now.
Oh yeah.
One thing that could be said about the film is the way that the posters are identical, but just with different changes, just like how the town is identical with different changes. And that's become a bit of an institution in itself, that trio of posters. I quite like that aspect. And you combine that with everything we've said so far, actually, the costumes, the skateboarding and guitar, that kind of iconography.
Yeah. It's like we said, it's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And just as an example, the big climax action scene when he's going back, the clock tower scene.
Yeah.
Everything about it fits. Everything. You've got the car and the wire and the clock and the score, and the editing is phenomenal because you're going from one to the next to the next. And the set, the characters, the acting, it's all perfectly fit together.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to stress, that this film specifically does that. I don't think the others do. Not all of them, and we will discuss that.
I think what's really interesting is that it's a film made to be in multiple parts. It wasn't a mistake that they had a sequel.
Yes, I never knew that as a kid. I always thought it was the film and then they decided.
Yeah.
But it's very odd.
It was designed as a 3-part film.
Yeah. That last scene, it says it will continue with Back to the Future 2.
At the beginning of each subsequent film and at the end of each one, you do, like you say, you do get that next time on kind of section or previously on. And again, it's making those little nods back to like the TV serials and things like that.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a good segue to Back to the Future Part 2, because it starts with a recap.
I just want to say and it does start with the recap. The last line of Back to the Future is, in my humble opinion, the best last line of a movie ever.
Right, yeah.
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. That is I love it. It's my favourite. It's my favourite last line of a movie.
It's pretty good.
Brilliant. And they recap that last bit, which is really strange. It was 4 years later though, so I suppose, it will have helped people.
But it's kind of like a two-pronged thing though, isn't it? It is good because it's a recap, but it actually serves two purposes, and we touched on it, and that's because they recast Jennifer. So this was all reshot.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
With Elizabeth Shue instead, and extra element, they give us more information than we got the first time, because we know now that Biff has seen the car, which is crucial. Actually, I lied. It's a 3-pronged approach. So it's a recap, a change of actor, and a little bit more information. So it suppressed what we knew the first time around, which is quite clever.
That's right. So I have to say, this is my wobble.
Right. Okay.
I pretty much hated the first 25 to 30 minutes of the second one. I'd forgotten why. I didn't know this one very well. I really disliked it. Now, I have to say that the last third made up for the first 2/3 of the film for me.
That's where it weaves much more into the first film.
Yeah, they went back to 1955, and that started to work for me, and I feel like they got back to the quality that they'd worked on. But it's like the beginning of Back to the Future 2. It's really jarring. I watched it the night after I watched the first one. It's so corny. It's slapstick to start.
Right.
The dialogue isn't very good at all. It's just...
Do you think you could tell that there was a 4-year gap? They didn't flow on as much as 2 and 3 did.
Yeah, because the tone changed.
Yeah.
I think, like we said with the first one, everything towed the line perfectly. And it's like they lost that with the second one. And I really disliked where it went. So, for instance, the acting in the future, Griff and Marty Jr., what's with the voices? They're awful.
But again, they were trying to predict as well, weren't they? They were trying to say that there was a wacky future coming, which I get. I was surprised at how little time they spend in 2015, because it's known for being the future one.
Exactly.
And they're only in there for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. The acting in the future, I couldn't get on board with that. It really cheapened the film for me. The dialogue in the original was so clever, and it felt witty, and it snuck in those little things, that you could almost miss. And with 2, it's like they're trying to slap you in the face with it.
I guess with people like, the actor that played Biff, who's, I don't know how old he was. I imagine he was similar age to...
I would imagine he was probably in his 20s, I would think.
Getting him to play a grandfather, it's always going to come across like that, and that's where for me the multi-rolling
that bit was fine. That bit was fine for me. It was Griff I had the problem with.
Right.
That was the big. I didn't get the screaming. I didn't like Marty Jr. with that stupid voice. I didn't like the fact that Michael J. Fox played all the characters. He played his daughter.
I disagree with. Yeah, it didn't look right. It was
it was not necessary.
Yeah, I actually wrote here multi-rolling was a bit ridiculous on this one. They knew what they were doing wasn't realistic. Like they were deliberately making it not realistic. That's a different effect.
I really couldn't get on board to that. Now, the actual future set, like him being introduced to the future.
Yeah.
All of the things that you've got to look at, that really worked. And obviously, we're not as advanced as they expected us to be
Absolutely
by
not.
that point. But it is really fascinating to look at all of the things that they've put in place there. Again, it's one of those where, the more you watch, the more you're going to pick up on.
Yeah, and again, the parallels, not just between present and past, but now between past, present, and future. And again, the same things, the garage, the diner, the cinemas, the mayors, and the mode of transport.
And obviously, with that as well, there's more special effects. Now, this is where it didn't work for me, because obviously with being in the future, the effects are obviously more ambitious in this film, because they're obviously showing such a techie kind of future, but they don't work as well, I don't think. I think they're more obvious and they're more fake.
I didn't like the hoverboard sequences, really.
I liked the hoverboard. That's the one bit that worked for me. It was the other
thing
things.
Is there was a very clear mixture of like digitally made shots, I suppose, and then ones that were done practically, and it shifted. Almost every shot was like practical, digital, not digital.
Practical. Yeah, that is the perfect thing. I just wanted to bring that up. I love the fact that they went for so many practical effects.
Yeah, those are the bits that worked.
They always work in movies because they've tried to practically do it. It's the same with the likes of Christopher Nolan, who we'll be talking about very soon.
Yeah.
When you actually practically do an effect,
yeah,
you are putting the work in. You are putting the effort in. And I'm not saying it does not take a lot of effort to make a special effect. It obviously does.
Yeah.
You are actually practically doing it. You are trying to pull it off right there and then.
Yeah.
And that's more impressive. So the likes of the skateboard scene in the first film and the hoverboard in the sequel, they feel better because they are practically done. And it's the same with that scene at the end in the tunnel with the hoverboard. It works.
Yeah, actually that's okay, that bit.
Yeah, they've actually done that. And that kind of leads on to one of the things I wanted to say, that the sequel, it works and it doesn't work. There are certain beats that are exactly repeated from the original.
There are, yeah.
So the hoverboard to an extent works, but I don't think they needed quite as much to follow it beat for beat for beat.
Yeah, it is mirroring exactly the same sequences, isn't it?
It was when it went off the beats that I preferred it. It became its own thing, and that's why I think I preferred the last third of the movie.
It's an interesting film, really, because it's hard for it to stand on its own 2 feet when it is so interwoven with the first one.
Yeah,
but it's weird though that those are the bits that work.
Yeah, because I think that comes back to the first film being so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a hypothetical question. This one introduced the idea of if you were in the future and you found a magazine that told you all the sports scores, would you take it? And would you use it?
Yes, I think I probably would.
Do you think you would fall into the trap that everyone else would and get too greedy, or would you be really strict about it? Because I think I'd be really sensible about it.
I'd like to think I'd be sensible. But
you'd be
who
corrupt
knows?
by greed.
But the thing is, that's what works, and that's one of the things about the movie. This film has a MacGuffin.
Yeah, that's what you mean, yeah.
The sports almanac is
the object.
Is what drives the story, and in that sense, it is quite clever. What you asked is a perfect question, because you, as an audience member, are going to question. You can believe that. Yeah, of course you would pick something up like that, because you could make your life better. You could change your circumstances. You could do all sorts of things.
All it takes is one big win, and you can just sort of relax from
it. and that works.
Yeah,
that's believable. Probably most people would do exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned earlier the fact that this film obviously knows that it's going to have a sequel, that they knew they were going to have a trilogy. This film, I noticed, unlike the first one, they are setting you up for the sequel as well. There's the video game, obviously.
Yeah, the first one I got was the arcade game, Wild Gunman.
He also mentions visiting the Old West. He'd always wanted to visit the Old West. And then obviously we know that he will.
Yes, that's right. There was a video with Biff's ancestors. I don't know how it's an actual video. It's a reenactment in the museum of Biff's life that he
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
His ancestors in the Old West, and that's Mad Dog that we meet later on. And then the DeLorean is glitching all the way through. That's the only other one that I picked up. It drew attention to the fact that 1885 was threatening to happen, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we sort of get a precursor there.
Again, I think this whole film, it either slaps you in the face or it's very clever like the original, and certain parts of it work. It kind of toes that line. It's either too much or it's done really well.
Yeah.
It's really is a mix of both, I think, this film. We've got to mention no Crispin Glover in this one.
Yeah, I read the story into this. This is fascinating.
It's a big deal considering he was such a large part of the first one. What they did, I think, worked because the plot is too busy for you to notice. And there were some clever tricks in there.
They hung him upside down and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, they had an actor who looked quite like him, and then obviously turned him upside down, and they used the clip from the original with Lorraine and George.
Yeah, that's right. So Crispin Glover sued Robert Zemeckis, the director, and the other writer, Bob Gale, because they recast his character, but then still used his likeness. So what came about from like the Screen Actors Guild is that there was more rules around, an actor sort of owns their image, if that makes sense. He basically sued them for, you've chosen not to cast me, but you're still replicating what I look like.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at wording things right now, but that's what I mean. The one thing I just want to mention, it bridges performances and special effects, really, because of the multi-rolling. If anything, it's my favourite part of the special effects in the film, is the ways that they had two characters played by the same actor coexisting on the screens together. So sometimes they would do just a straight split screen, they used the bar in the diner at one point so that present-day Marty and future son of Marty could be beneath and above the counters, and then later on where they've used quite ahead of the time, really, because this is only 1989, but that motion control camera that we talked about in Titanic.
Yeah.
So they could have characters existing together, but without sacrificing camera movement. They could still have both. I thought that was super clever and way ahead of when I thought they could do that kind of stuff. So that's really good.
It's interesting to note that they were filming Back to the Future 2 and 3 back to back.
Yeah.
So Robert Zemeckis was flying from one to the other, basically. So they'd wrapped on 2, but they were filming 3, and he was flying back to look at the edit and and going back and forth and back and forth. And he actually says that he thinks 2 suffered because of that, because he didn't get to give it his full attention during the edit. And I absolutely agree with that.
I can see it. Yeah.
I personally think the second film is the weakest in the trilogy. And that's probably why.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I kind of agree, yeah. When we talk about the third one, I'll mention why I hesitate. There's one thing from the second film, because they tried to predict the future. Just a quick note to say how well they did and didn't. Because in many ways, they predicted a lot.
I'm still waiting for the hydrating food, done in seconds.
Do we not have that? Ready meals?
Well, I mean, to a point.
Well, the ones I got written down were video calls, drones, fingerprint scanners, voice control, VR headsets, / hands-free devices, ready meals, 3D billboards. Those are the ones I got. And then another note onto that, Donald Trump. Although he was already a popular figure at the time, but apparently Biff was based on Donald Trump.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, in fact, that's not in the least bit surprising when you actually look at that alternate 1985.
Yeah.
It's horrendous. It's very, very timely, actually, when you watch it now.
Yeah. What's interesting is the things that they didn't get right. People in real life have found themselves trying to achieve in time for 2015. So the Nike trainers, I think even the self-drying and the self-fitting clothes they tried to do.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
I really would love that. The hoverboard is becoming a thing.
Yeah, the hoverboard's the other one.
They are definitely working on that.
Yeah, so it's just interesting that real life was trying to catch up. They didn't want to disappoint.
They brought out the Nike shoe, didn't they?
Yeah,
around
they did.
about
Yeah.
2015. But it is very clever. It's very clever. Any film that looks into the future, you're never going to get it right. But
Yeah.
I think what was interesting about this one is that 1985 and 2015, you knew that there was going to be a significant change in technology.
Yeah.
And more interesting to the point that I don't think it would be as interesting as saying 30 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had the big technological leap.
But then that leads into the third one.
Yeah.
Then you take all of that away.
Yeah.
You're back to pretty much nothing, and that reflects on the plot and how are you going to get the time machine to work, because nothing that you would use to make it run or use it in any way or fix it exists, because you're in 1885. So it's very clever the way that the three films are done.
Yeah, it's a completely different tone, the last one.
Yeah, I liked that.
To be honest, I liked the third one more than what it is technically I would say that the third film is one of the tidiest plot-wise of the three, but because it feels disconnected from the stories of 1 and 2, that's why people don't necessarily like it as much.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah,
objectively better film, maybe better made film, but not a Back to the Future film, so that's why it's got a bit of stick.
Yeah, I think the third one, obviously by that point, you love these characters. You know, you've got there's such a camaraderie between Doc and Marty. It just was perfectly cast, and it never gets old. So by the third one, you know, you're really invested in that, and you know the other characters. So you get that comic feeling when you see, you know, this mad dog Biff Tannen. You know, you're getting to see this different version of it. I think Leah Thompson was very underused in this one. I'm not sure why.
It's unusual, isn't it? Because it was the only time where she wasn't playing a version of Lorraine anymore. She was just, they added her in because they felt like, well, we need to have you. You're part of the family, I guess.
Yeah, it was disappointing because she was such a big part of the Back to the Future films, and I think she was just not used well in this one. She just kind of popped up here and there. I loved the introduction of Mary Steenburgen as Clara.
I think she was one of the best characters.
Yeah, she was. And it was, like I said before, Marty's just kind of there. This is Doc Brown's story. I really liked that.
Yeah.
It really
did.
Gave it something. I liked the fact that it's got a very clear storyline.
Yeah.
For this one, it's more like the type of film you would expect. It's not as disjointed. Really.
I found that it kind of opposite to what you said about, you know, you see Doc and Marty together, and you know that chemistry is instantly there. I didn't feel it much in this one. I thought Michael J. Fox looked like he didn't really want to be there a lot of the film. I think he looked very tired.
I think he was. Well, he
yeah,
was.
He probably
with them
was.
Doing it, with them doing it back to back, and that year he became a dad.
Right. Okay.
For the first time, and his father passed away.
Oh God.
So he was probably kind of, you know, burnt out by that point. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
And then Doc Brown, as much as I like the fact that he got a bit more of a fleshing out in a story, his character then for me started acting uncharacteristically, making questionable decisions. You know, all the love at first sight stuff and the whiskey and the, you know, all these extra bits. To me, it was almost like the characters were changing and they went in different directions. And I guess that's part of the story, but again, for me, didn't feel like a Back to the Future film.
So they gave him a story arc, but you didn't particularly like his arc.
Not that I didn't like the story of it, just that up until now, these were just archetypes. You know what I mean? We had 80s teenager and mad professor, and all of a sudden giving them so much
they're fleshing
more.
Them out.
Yeah. And making them do things that up until now they wouldn't have done. And I get it, characters change, and that's realistic. But it did feel to me that, you know, Marty was struggling to get Doc on his side a lot of this film.
Yeah, that's true.
So that to me, from a character perspective and a plot perspective,
I found again this one had a lot of those comical aspects, the Irish accents, which to be honest, I just really don't think was necessary. It sticks with the tone that they were obviously going for the sequels, because I don't think the original has that tone that the sequels have. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I just find it very cliched and it's very corny, and I just like don't see the need for it, really. They're the parts that don't work for me.
Yeah, again, I think they're paying homage to old TV serials where, the acting was bad, and which it's part of their aesthetic, I guess. Like Back to the Future knowingly did it.
Yeah.
But again, there's a line, isn't there? There's a line where it stops
I'm not
being
saying it's
fun.
it's a part of their charm, but like you say, there's a line, and too often it crosses it over into slapstick and too much, and slapping you in the face with it. I don't need that.
Are you doing it for the story, or are you just doing it because you can?
Yeah, exactly. Now that leads into a few like staples that they've put in there, 80s staples that are in there for laughs, obviously for laughs. The moonwalk.
Yeah, Michael
for
Jackson
instance.
moonwalk, yeah.
Why is that there?
Yeah, it's a bit forced.
It feels to me like, exactly. It's trying too hard. I didn't need that.
There was also the taxi driver one and the Dirty Harry references.
Yeah, well, I liked the metal plate. That worked because, like you say, that drove the story. It wasn't just there.
Which
you know
metal
what I mean?
plate? Sorry.
When when you get shot by Biff at the end.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that is a scene from Fistful of Dollars, where the others are just there, and I hate. It's like they're forced in, and I don't like that. What really worked for it was the set. The Western set is like proper old school backlot Hollywood, that's great to see. It was 1990. That's great to see, and they're really doing those things. Michael J. Fox had to learn to ride a horse, and he had to learn to shoot, and he had to he got dragged along behind the horses.
Cool.
Those things that they actually practically happened, and I again, it's when they practically do these things and it's actually there, and that's what I really like.
Yeah. Again, on special effects, and the split screen tricks were still present. In this one, I've got to say, I don't know if you noticed it. One very dodgy. They actually call it a natural wipe. That's the actual technical term for this. It's when they do it in rope, and they do it in 1970. An object or a person goes right in front of the camera, enough for them to conceal it, and then they cut. And it's where Leah Thompson's character's walking, and Michael J. Fox is passing the baby to himself as Marty McFly. And it's just the most awkward cut. You can tell she walks in front of the camera and then stops. Then there's cut, and then she kind of then awkwardly walks off again.
It's good that they put those in and they tried these things and they went for them.
Well, it's a shame, really, because only a few minutes earlier in that scene, Michael J. Fox passes himself a plate of food, and I was scratching my head going, how have they done that?
How did they do that?
So for another one to then be really dodgy, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it is a little bit like part 2 in the fact that it toes the line very closely, and there are hits and misses. This. Now, for you, obviously, you said that the love story part for Doc Brown is not necessarily for you, and it's corny, it's cliched.
I like it. It's just not his character. That's the only thing I didn't.
But there is something quite sweet about it, and it works because of her. I think.
Yeah.
Like you said, she is very good in it. And funnily enough, it was Christopher Lloyd's first on-screen kiss in a movie.
Right.
He'd never had one to that point.
Bless him.
So it's cute, isn't it? I watched it in the little making of. I was like, oh,
yeah, you don't think about that, do you?
So cute.
Tell you what, though, on the lines of him not acting characteristically, Marty went back with the picture of the gravestone, saying he was shot in the back or whatever.
Yeah.
Why didn't he instantly go, oh, I'll just wear some armor again? He did it in the first film. Up until Marty actually put armor on himself, nobody mentioned, well, I'll just wear armor then if I know I'm going to get shot in the back. One of the two plot holes for me, actually.
Well, there's not exactly a ready available bulletproof vest in 1885, I suppose. So
no, but they could have prepared. The other one is when... So we know that Clara was alive in the canon of history when Doc was shot in the back, because it's on the gravestone saying Clara, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when Doc is with Marty, when Marty's gone back, he says that Clara was meant to have died in the ravine and they intervened. So how then was she alive when he died the first time around? Because Doc and Marty were out planning their return, which Doc wouldn't have been doing.
Yeah, I wonder if it was always meant to happen. That he was always
possible.
Meant to go back.
Yeah.
This is the thing with time travel film. You know that there are plot holes if you look for them. There are definitely plot holes.
Yeah.
And that might well be one of them.
I've written here in capital letters, email in if you can explain this.
One thing I really like about all three films, and it's always the end, and yes, it does follow beat for beat. It's always them trying to get back. It's that last kind of climactic scene.
Yeah.
I think they're great suspense builders.
I bit all my nails off.
Yeah, they build that tension, like the train sequence at the end is fantastic.
Yeah.
It has the energy of the original Clock Tower sequence. And again, it all just falls into place there. But there's such big suspense builders, the editing, it's just fantastic. The music.
What I like is that you don't know actually how it's going to go. Like, you really don't know whether it's going to work or who's going to get back and who's not.
Yeah. And that leads on to that moment when he does get back and the DeLorean's destroyed. Because you don't know. I mean, it's kind of gut-wrenching.
A little bit, yeah.
It's the end of an era and you don't know that Doc's going to be able to get back. I mean, and you're kind of okay with that because you knew he was back there and he saved Clara and, they were going to be fine.
Yeah.
But the destruction of the DeLorean was just like, oh.
Yeah, I quite admire that, unlike the last two films where things get tied up perfectly and it becomes the perfect film, this one wasn't. It dealt a lot more with them as people. And,
yes, it did.
And having moments like that where it gets destroyed just sort of hammers it home that things
actual
in
real
real life
emotions
don't always, they don't get wrapped up in a nice tidy package. Sometimes things come to an end. You do move away from people and you leave people behind in your life and things like that. I did quite like that.
Until he does actually come back in a flying train.
Until that happens.
And then wraps it all up with a bow.
In which case, the whole thing's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I do love, though? I love that each film leaves you with a smile. It really does.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. Always, you just left with this kind of punch the air smile, satisfied. I would love to see this in the cinema. I really would. Hopefully, for the 40th anniversary in 5 years' time, they will.
I'm sure someone somewhere will be showing that. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'll be absolutely honest. Just to wrap this up,
Yep.
my final thought on this is, I could actually quite happily go back and watch the first one again.
Yeah.
It just never gets old for me.
Yeah.
It really doesn't.
I do like it. You know me, I'm not massive on 80s.
No, you're not.
Not 80s films as such, but it's more just films that are just for fun.
Yeah.
I like to have something a little bit deeper. I still like fun films, but I think I always like a little bit more substance.
Yeah.
But actually, the fact that it's a time travel film and a comedy, and it's clever, and it does have ties in with the real world. Like we said, it makes you put your own time period into the mix, and it makes you put your own thoughts about, when it came to that sports almanac, and it gets you thinking about time.
What would you do?
Yeah, I like
absolutely.
that aspect. So actually, it is one of the better 80s films for me.
I love everything about the first one. There's not one thing about it I don't like. I love the cast. I love the music. I love the plot and the script. I think it's expertly directed. Like I've said a million times, it is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And Robert Zemeckis has said that they will remake this film over his dead body.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Tom Holland was talking about it, wasn't he? He said he wanted to play Marty McFly in a remake, and it was like, don't tempt them.
Yeah, no. I can't think how you would do this again. It worked because of who was in it. It worked because of when it was made.
Exactly, yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been the same anywhere else.
Yeah, you just can't redo that. It is magical because of all of those things coming together and just fitting.
You got the feds after you over there. It's the furs. I guess that's probably a good point there. So we've kind of been to the future, back to the alternate past, back to the past, back to the present, and now we should talk about the news of the day.
Yes, our present day.
It's quick fire news, really. So give me your quick fire reactions to this news. Jason Momoa is going to be voicing Frosty the Snowman in a live action retelling of the story.
Right, okay, so that's what's happening. I saw a picture the other day saying that he was going to play Frosty the Snowman. I was like, what the hell? I didn't look into it because I was too busy. But the fact that it's just voicing, I'm okay with that. Because if it wasn't, I would be like, what? You can't do that.
He might be slightly physically. I have no idea, but I'm not sure why. Because surely even the CGI snow would melt. Next in the news, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, so they're sort of the producers and writers or directors behind Superbad, This Is the End, Pineapple Express, Good Boys, The Interview, Sausage Party. They're producing a CG Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot. The Turtles never go away, do they?
They don't, but the thing is,
them.
They're one of those things that can be done.
Yes,
that can be reinvented, that it's not going to hinder what came before.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely fine with that. And there aren't many things you can do that with, I think, but they really do live for reinvention, I think.
Yeah.
So I've never been a huge Ninja Turtle fan.
No, me neither.
But I'm totally fine with that. It'll be interesting to see what they bring to it.
One thing that will very much excite you, the co-producer of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has said, and I quote him, the development of new groundbreaking art techniques, this is for the sequel, are already blowing him away. It's going to make the first movie look quaint.
Oh my god.
So
absolutely. Do you know what? Into the Spider-Verse was my biggest surprise of that year.
Yeah.
I caught the very last showing in the cinema. It'd been out for months. I caught the very, very, very last one. And I was so glad I did. And I was blown away
I wish
by
I'd
how
seen
much
it in
I
the cinema.
enjoyed it.
I wish I had.
Absolutely, I was awestruck. It was so much fun. It was so enjoyable. It looked so different and fresh. I would never before that day have said that anyone could be Spider-Man apart from Peter Parker.
Right,
but I absolutely loved Miles Morales. I really got on board with that. So yeah, I am absolutely there for the sequel.
Bearing in mind that they already mixed 2D, 3D, different frame rates for different characters.
So what on earth are they going to do?
How else are they going to do it? It's exciting to say the least. And the last one, dead simple, Cineworld and View are now not opening.
No.
In July, they're opening at the end of July, the last day of July, the 31st.
Yes, 31st of July.
And Tenet and Mulan have moved accordingly to August.
I think that's a very wise move.
Just in case. You never know.
It's just, I mean, things just are not stable enough at the moment to be able to settle and say that you can confirm anything. And I think, to be honest, they wouldn't have got a good reaction.
No.
Not like the pubs anyway.
No,
I think there'd have been a lot more hesitant people. And obviously then with the movies moving as well, you weren't going to have anything to show. I think it's wise to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's in their own interest as much as it is in ours, I suppose.
Yeah, but I have to admit, for me personally, the only thing I would make an exception for is A Quiet Place 2.
Yeah, which is
that has to
September, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, that has to be seen in a cinema.
Yeah.
But other than that, nothing would tempt me to go and sit in a room with lots of strangers as much as I want to.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't take the risk, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same.
I think I would still go, I think.
Yeah, you're a cinema nut though, aren't you?
What, and you're not?
You live for
you go more than me. I'd go to see Tenet, and I would go to see A Quiet Place.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'd like to see how it goes first.
Well, the thing is, like, especially with Christopher Nolan, he's giving Tenet a longer release, so it's going to be out.
Yeah,
it's going to be, obviously it's pushed back now, but it'll be out for longer when it is out.
That's good. At the end of the day, I think the whole film industry at the moment is going to have to change a little bit.
Yeah,
they're going to have to look at longer releases. They're going to have to change the way they think about film release because things have changed.
Yeah.
Whether we want them to or not, they have. So they're going to have to adapt to the times.
Yeah, I guess so.
So we'll see how it goes, really.
And that's the news.
That's it.
So, do you want to recommend a film?
I do. the film I want to recommend is very timely because it is Independence Day weekend in America. Hi to anybody who's listening from there. So I am recommending Independence Day, which I watched last week. And it's one of those 90s epic blockbusters that's just like full throttle, absolutely mad, killer lines, there's so many one-liners for Will Smith in that movie. It's ridiculous. And Bill Pullman's just fantastic. And I don't mind Jeff Goldblum in this. I think it's his most normal role.
To be honest, yeah.
And I think it works. Don't get me wrong, I love him in Jurassic Park. Yeah. But it is just such a kind of over-the-top kind of swagger. And he's kind of like that anyway. I like the fact that he had to downturn the swagger and take that kind of out of it for this more down to earth role.
Yeah.
And it's just fab. It is absolutely brilliant. The effects for the time work really well. And it's just a load of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that, especially for this weekend because it is Independence Day weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mine, well, straight away I thought, right, 80s films I'm not that good on, but I should try and recommend what I do think is my favourite 80s film. Keep the theme going.
I'm interested to hear what this is because you were very pleased with yourself when you said you'd come up with your recommendation
Wait for this
week.
Are you ready? It was a no-brainer, actually. I picked it straight away. My favourite 80s film, I would say, is Clue.
Yeah.
And then I went, actually, it's also the 35th anniversary of Clue because that also came out in 1985.
Is it?
And then I went, starring Christopher Lloyd, and I went, oh my god. So I've recommended a film from the same year but using the same actor as well. So my choice is actually
very clever,
low-key genius. So if you haven't seen Clue, where have you been? Dead simple. It's based on the board game Clue / Cluedo, depending on where you are. And it's weird really because you don't adapt many board games into films, and the fact that they chose to do what is a murder mystery as a comedy, it's definitely not what you would expect, but actually it's incredibly well written, and there's all sorts of different kinds of comedy in this, from slapstick and physical, the sets and the props, because it's all really set in one mansion, as well as the verbal quips and innuendos and outbursts. So potentially in that respect, I think it's one of the most quotable films ever made. Every line is a punchline.
I've only seen it once, and you were the one who made me watch that.
Watch it?
I'd never even heard of it.
Really?
I had I'd never heard of it. Had no idea what it was, and I watched it with you. I definitely need to rewatch it because I haven't.
To be honest,
they are remaking it.
They
Have
are
you not
remaking
heard?
it. Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is remaking it.
I hope that falls through.
If you're going to pick someone, I think if you're going to pick someone to work on it, Ryan Reynolds is probably a good guy to pick. He's got very good comic timing, and I think he would probably pull it off if anyone was to do it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced personally.
I do need to rewatch it because I don't remember a lot of it, so I'm gonna have to rewatch it. I know it's one of your favourites.
Laugh out loud a minute, if not every 30 seconds. One of the best things about it really are the characters, and as you would expect, Cluedo lends itself well to colourful characters, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, it's easy to spoof, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easy to go over the top and ham it up because it plays well to that. That's what it lends itself to.
Scarlet Mustard Green Plum, who is Christopher Lloyd, and Eileen Brennan's Mrs. Peacock, and Madeline Kahn is Mrs. White. It's got to be said, though, that Tim Curry, I think the film is absolutely made by him. And a lot of people say that Rocky Horror is his best role. I politely disagree. I think what he puts into his performance in Clue as Wadsworth the butler is nothing short of extraordinary. It is a phenomenal performance. When you watch how the film culminates at the end, if you know the film, it's the recap of events that he gives, and it's a very long extended sequence. It's actually fantastic. I highly recommend Clue. Please watch Clue again this week. Watch it with Mark, he'll love it.
I will. I'll try and get Mark to watch it. It's very hard to get Mark to watch anything, but I'll do my best. I'll rewatch it. Can't guarantee he will.
Fair enough.
And that's it.
That's it. You're going to ask me where can you find us?
I absolutely was. Matt, where can they find us?
Well, you can find us on our website, www.cinechat.co.uk/podcast, or on any social media site. Just search CineChat Podcast, CineChat Pod, or CineChat_official, or you can email us at
podcast@cinechat.co.uk.
And if you can tell me why Clara was on the gravestone, that would be great, because I just didn't understand it. Next time, it was going to be the release date of Tenet. Instead, we're going to use the time still to go over Christopher Nolan's other filmography. We're going to be reviewing all 10 films.
Yeah. Epic Christopher Nolan episode.
Yeah.
This is going to require an awful lot of work.
Yes and no. Yes, absolutely it will. Yeah. So if you're a fan of, I don't know, Memento, the Dark Knight franchise, Inception, Insomnia, Interstellar, Dunkirk, The Prestige, and the other one, please tune in then. And in the meantime, I believe that is goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Woohoo!